Those memories is what defines the character that we have built in our minds. Those memories is what makes you to a certain personality. You have to face death now as you live and breathe. As we welcome the winter and the cases of melancholy rise, many will start to think about dying, maybe not in some particular way, but something reminiscing that the video that we view through the lenses that we call eyes will stop playing. Winter is also a period of death for everything to be reborn again in spring. It's a way of life which is about cycles as some sort of reincarnation over and over again. Dying or death has a very negative connotation. The fear is so strong that people make everything to avoid to deal with it by all means. And to deal with it we must, as if you don't, the physical death will create an unbearable horror in your mind and potentially hinder a fulfilling life.
In our waking hours, for much of our lives, we're granted an unwarranted luxury, a sense that we are immortal. Our organs function normally, our joints give us no pains, we are focused on the next few financial quarters in the business. Dropping dead is the last thing on our minds. But this is not the case in the early hours. Suddenly there's an odd gnawing twinge in the stomach. It isn't anything major, and it might pass by tomorrow, but this might also be the start of a tumour that will fell us by the new year.
When we're young, vibrant and healthy, there's no reason to think about death. Those thoughts come to you only when something severe happens to you, like losing somebody very dear to you, or maybe breaking your leg. Whenever your immortality becomes questioned, you start to think about dying. And those thoughts are necessary, it's inescapable. We have to come to terms that this, what we see through these eyes, will cease to exist someday. We become slightly hypochondriac, being excessively worried about our health and well-being in general. Those moments are meant to happen to us in order to ground us in reality. And reality is very subjective. What you believe is what is. You can lure yourself to think most outrageous thoughts, and those won't be less true just because somebody else thinks that.
Also, our chest feels a bit tight. When we breathe, there can sometimes be a sense of strain. There was an incident a little while back at the airport, running for the distant gate. Could it have been a heart attack? A quiet one that passes largely undetected, but tears fatefully at a valve. What about the slightly odd mole on one's back? Has it always been there, or is it new, spreading aggressively and malignantly? Why can't we remember the name of that really nice colleague we worked with a few years back?
Oh god. Unexpected and unwanted changes in the body may also trigger existential queries within you, like a mold on a foot or maybe gray hair. As we grow older, it becomes more natural to think about this stuff, to think about death in general, as we had enough time to create memories, to start to care about those memories, become ego invested in those memories. Those memories is what defines the character that we have built in our minds. Those memories is what makes you to a certain personality. Someone people remember, someone people can perceive as one of their own. But the question you should ask yourself, am I my own memories? Is there nothing beyond my memories? Who am I? Those are important questions, and encountering death, at least metaphysically speaking, is very important from that point of view.
Is reason beginning to crumble? This would be just the moment for a stroke which will leave us half paralysed. Paramedics will urgently wheel us along the A&E corridors on a trolley bed. We'll need to have our bottom wiped by a nurse and be fed with a tube coming out of our nose. The sheer implausibility of being and remaining alive grows overwhelming. How is it possible that one can keep living, given everything that might go wrong? It isn't hypochondria anymore, that macabre, almost fun state of mind you can adopt as an adolescent. This is a realistic assessment of the risks.
What she talks about is hypochondria growing to a point where it becomes an existential crisis of some sort, where you start to question the life as a whole, the concept of living, and why we aren't dead as of now. Why should we live? What's the point of everything? Some years ago, when I started my transformation, which eventually led to creation of this channel, I wasn't exactly a person who believed in magic, so to speak. But through this journey, I come to realization that just because we cannot sense something doesn't mean it's not true or it doesn't exist. I was big on atheism, but now I realize that life as a concept is miracle in itself, and we take it for granted. We accept everything just because, without questioning it one bit. How can we live? Why are things the way they are? We accept this social acculturation without thinking about deeper stuff. The social acculturation contributes to us creating a persona. Yo. Yes. And now I start to understand that the rationalism is something that we people created and abide by just because we can connect dots from one point to another, trying to make sense of this physical form, of this physical world, and that mysticism and life and miracle is not a rational or logical thing. Our flawed concepts cannot describe the life as a whole and will never be able to.
It's the imagination correctly deployed. This present ache or twinge might not announce the end, but something will happen. The abstract possibility of death turns at night into a concrete, decisive fact. Perhaps we'll fall off a ladder trying to get a suitcase out of a high-up cupboard and lie on the floor for 8 hours with a broken neck, blood filling our lungs, before anyone finds our discoloured limp body. Or maybe we'll be lucky, and it will be a quick aneurysm on the way back from a party, celebrating a friend's birthday. Whatever it will be, it's getting closer.
Fast death is something we surely wish for ourselves. The reason being is that we don't want to be tormented, but it's only because we don't understand death and what it really means. Think about the fact that nobody knows what happens after death, and somehow we think that it's something bad. How can we deem something to be bad, outrageous, and unwanted if we don't know what it is? Death isn't about ending life, because life never ends. Death is about transformation of the consciousness from one state to another. And the fear of death comes from ego investment in this physical form, in this life, in your memories, in your friends, in your family. This body won't survive, and this body isn't you. The body is what our ego becomes attached to. Death isn't the end, it's the continuation in another form.
Others will be deeply distressed for a while. A few people will be sad even years later when they happen to think of us. But they'll cope. It won't matter to anyone the way it matters to us right now. We're appalled and awed by the deep strangeness of being alive. It's so fundamentally improbable that the delicate web of our thoughts and feelings is being sustained by a bunch of pulpy, fragile organs. All our complicated ideas and lovely movements of the soul depend upon tiny mindless white blood corpuscles, oxygen molecules, and the rhythmic spasms of the sinoatrial node.
Putting such a huge emphasis, such a huge worth on this physical form, physical body, is nothing but an ego investment, which makes it much more difficult for us to cope with the feeling of death, or I mean the thought of dying. So to understand death, to become prepared whenever your physical form becomes outdated, you have to face death now as you live and breathe. All those thoughts about who you are and your personality and what you aspire to do, whom you love, what kind of people you want to keep in your life, and cherish the moments of each and every day, grow old with. All those things are nothing but a concept that you created in your mind.
Why does this machine keep going? Why aren't we dead already? The thoughts are horrific, and the full panic may go on for half an hour or more. But as we gradually grow used to the idea of being obliterated and forgotten, the thought of death sharpens our resolve. We have to do the important things while we can. We need to finish our work and dare to take up new initiatives. We need to forgive more. We can let a stupid comment pass. We can give up on a feud, even though the other wronged us. The visceral knowledge of our approaching death renews our appreciation of existence.
Embracing death in thoughts, metaphysically speaking, is what makes you to feel much more alive than ever before. Paradoxically, death makes you feel alive. As we understand the miracle of creation, we start to cherish each and every moment when we fathom the limitation of this physical body. It being a very short fragment in the totality of life is the moment when we fully start living. Embracing death, understanding it, is the single most important thing that will push you to pursue your full potential. And I don't mean to make a great wealth and become rich and gain a high status. I mean to live a life that you would be proud of. Death is the doorway to life. And if you die now, you won't need to do it all over again because you have accepted everything as it is.
It's incredible to be able to hear a car accelerating in the distance. It's fascinating to have feet. The pillow feels so nice on our cheek. It will be lovely to look tomorrow at a tree, or to hear a song, or bite into a fig. We're brought back to a proper sense of the charm of things that ordinarily seem too slight to notice, but which are close to why life is worth cherishing. The veil of jaded familiarity is pulled back, at least for a little while. A year starts to look like a huge privilege to have. A day when nothing much happens won't be boring. It will be a magnificent opportunity to continue to exist.
A very great ending to a good video. What she talks about is being. There are two domains in a human life, being and doing. Doing is what you do when you are in thoughts, when you're planning, when you're strategizing, when you're making money in order to sustain this physical form. Being is what you are. And as you embrace death, you start to value smallest things in life. Eating tomatoes will feel like a heaven. Because it is. You will be fully present with all of your senses in each and every task that you perform. And what can be more wonderful than to enjoy each step you take? Don't get me wrong, this is not about happiness or sadness. This is about what you are beyond the brain, beyond the mind, beyond your thoughts and memories. Being is about becoming alive. And I use the word becoming loosely because you are already alive. You just have to realize that. And don't get it twisted. It's not an overnight procedure. It takes time for you to invest, to cultivate that focus of yours, to focus on life and being itself, to not get distracted, to not take things for granted, to not become enraged or sad about smallest things that will pass tomorrow, to not make hasty decisions, to understand the miracle of life. If you want to know more about this topic, watch this video. What's your experience and thoughts about death? Tell me in the comments section. But for now, Hossein out.